Hey, deserving listeners, I sent a survey to you all asking your opinions and takes on Love is Blind Season 9. I sent out the survey after Episode 6 aired, but before Episode 7. So this is in that first week after the first 6 episodes were published, and I thought I would go over the responses here. I just finished watching Episode 6, so anything on here wouldn't be a spoiler for me, so that's why I'm going to go to the survey here. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. This is the Psychology in Seattle podcast and YouTube channel. Let's look at the first question here. How much did you like the season? There's only 62 responses because I forgot to send the survey earlier. So I sent it out just before the next batch of episodes aired, and I didn't want people to watch those next batch and respond to the survey because it would have been a different set of people, and I would have to wait even longer to review the responses. So I only allowed maybe 10 hours for people, and it was overnight, so usually we get more responses, but often the results, I'll see them, I'll check in with the responses throughout the day when I will administer it, for a few days. And often after a few hours, those trends will persist. Not always, but they usually will. So the results of this is likely representative of even a larger sample, which is likely representative of, at the very least, of people that respond to these surveys. Anyway, so I asked, how much did you like the season? And we have loving it at 7%, so not very many. We have 26% saying above average. We have another 26% saying average, and we have 31% saying below, and we have 11% saying they hate it. So on average, trending towards not liking it, but if you just see the bell curve, it's probably average. Most people are saying, it's about average. So in comparison to previous times that I've administered this survey, from my memory anyway, this indicates that people are liking it less than previous seasons on average, at least the people who responded. So that's interesting. All right, so let's go to some takes. And this first person says, worst casting so far, but entertaining, and it starts conversations, they say. Yeah. Almost every, if not every time when I ask this question, a good portion of people say worst casting ever. And yeah, we can't know. And I could see people thinking this about any season, maybe this season in particular, I don't know. But yeah, I will say I've never heard anyone say best casting ever. But maybe it's sort of like NFL linemen, you only get called out when things go wrong. Anyway, next take. This might be the first season where none of the people will say yes. Yeah. So Allie and Anton, by the end of episode 6, we didn't see them hardly at all. There's no reason to believe they're not going to say yes. So there's that. KB and Edmund, there's not a lot of hope there, but who knows? Madison and Joe, not a lot of hope there. Megan and Jordan, maybe. Hard to say. Annie and Nick, maybe. So, in terms of season to season, I would say that this is kind of typical, that you have one couple that you're like, well, yeah, definitely, and a couple where you're like, oh, maybe, and then a couple where you're like, no. Let's see. I was very surprised and upset that Anna left because I really was excited to see her move forward. Yeah. I liked Edmund until the bedroom scene where he broke down. Yeah, I just reacted to that. He acts like he has his emotions in check, but that right there showed me a whole new side of him. Yeah, I don't know if he would claim his emotions are in check, but it was one of the first times, or if not the first time, where I thought, oh, Edmund, no, going on. Very insecure. Yeah. Mike was horrible. By the way, after I read a few more takes, I'm going to, because I asked everyone who they liked, who they disliked, and so I'm going to go over that. And I'm going to take a guess and say that not a lot of people liked Mike, but who knows? We'll find out. At least one person didn't like Mike. I hated him from the get-go. I didn't like how Megan got upset at Jordan at the meetup. He is goofy, and maybe he just didn't show that side of himself enough in the pods. Who knows? Interesting. Yeah, so at the pool party, when Jordan and Joe were joking a lot and Megan got upset, I will say that the way Megan was upset, it seemed a little excessive, but we didn't see the whole exchange. Likely there was a lot more there that Megan was reacting to. And the way that Megan was upset was different than the way that we saw Madison get upset. I'm not saying one is better or not, but the way that Megan was upset was that she had a lot of eye contact. Jordan and Megan were in physical contact, and she's like, I didn't like that. I didn't like that. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry. And then he presumably rebonded and they went off on their way, whereas Joe and Madison had a different kind of course. So yeah, I kind of agree that you're saying that you didn't like how Megan got upset, but the way that she handled it, I think, is optimistic to me. It also just kind of says that Megan is invested a little bit, right? I'm looking for signs of passion and love and effort, and Megan, even if she might be a little misguided, but I don't know. There's a chance that a lot of people would agree with Megan that Jordan was being annoying. So there's that. All right. This season is just very strange and different. I don't believe any of the couples actually love each other. Yeah, I could see that. Allie and Anton are the only ones that we don't have any negative things yet. I mean, I'm guessing it's coming, but who knows? I don't know. I could see KB and Edmund working. I speculated earlier in an earlier video about my guesses, and all of them are tentative because there's just not a lot of data. But yeah, there's usually a couple. Usually it's the Allie and Anton because, they get engaged in the first episode. So usually they put their best foot forward in Netflix. And so usually that first couple has a lot more indicators shown to us anyway of love and passion and the things that we would expect to see people when they're really in love and dedicated and they have that foundation moving forward. And we really just didn't see it with anybody. Next person. I have a feeling there will be very little marriages this season. Yeah, I don't know. We'll find out. I guess this season has meat to it, but I hate it. Seems like one of the worst seasons in a while. Reminds me of season 5. I was wondering. There's no good couples to root for. I would say that compared to season 5, it's better in that respect. Maybe, I don't know. I also think there's a bit of bias because we remember, or I don't know if this is true, but I think there's a possibility that we remember the good couples, the couples that made it, and the couples that have stayed in the public eye, right? We might forget that a lot of couples have these kind of indicators where you don't really know if they're that into each other, even from the beginning. Going on. I wish the show gave the cast more mental health support and limited the alcohol access. Some of the situations the cast members were put in with near strangers during the honeymoon were alarming. Some of the, maybe Joe, I'm not sure. Love Island UK has implemented rules, so I don't think it impedes the ability to make a show audiences would want to watch. Yeah, I don't know. I could see a lot of different angles to this. On one hand, these are adults. They should be able to handle their own lives. And if they want to drink, then, especially if they're at a resort. So what are you going to do? Like, say, you can't drink. I mean, that you could be criticized to do that. Now, in the pods, obviously, there's more ability for the production to limit things or maybe just kind of encouraging. But I'll say that for the most part, I would expect there to be a lot more drunkenness, and there isn't. There is some, but often people seem to be managing things pretty well in the pods and out of the pods. So that. Plus, I don't think things would go that much better if they limited alcohol. Plus, if you're trying to suss out whether or not someone is good for you, seeing how they manage alcohol is a part of the equation, right? You wouldn't want to be surprised later on. So mental health support, yeah, I've given this a lot of thought. Obviously, as a mental health provider, I would want that. But it's hard to know exactly how to do it. And they do have some provisions, and sometimes we wonder if they actually are easily accessed, and if these paid professionals, like in the pods, because it's my understanding that they do have clinicians on hand or available anyway, but if they're employees of production, do the cast members feel willing to talk to them or open or something? It's just hard to know. And absolutely. But what do we think is going to happen? That they have, maximum like 3 sessions in the span of the first 6 episodes? Because, the first 6 episodes span the 10 days in the pods. They usually have a couple days where they're just kind of stuck in a hotel room. And then we've seen, I think, 2 days in the getaway. And so in that 14-day period, if they had 1 or 2 sessions, maybe 5 sessions, do we think this is going to drastically change these? Now, if they had couple therapy on hand, absolutely. That I would imagine would be the biggest bang for the buck. But that would be a different show. Would I be all for that? Yeah. Would it help the experiment? Yeah. Would it add more drama, more filmable stuff? Probably, right? Because you would get into things more directly rather than wondering what's happening. So yeah. All right. So the rest of this episode is just going to be for members of the YouTube channel. I'm going to go over each cast member of the ones that we saw, not only the ones that went on the getaway, but some of the more ancillary people like Kate and Patrick and everything. And I'm going to review who you liked, who you disliked, and I'm going to go over more of your takes. So become a member. Otherwise, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.